Welcome back, my friends. I'm going to start a new tutorial, a maze game tutorial. I've done this on the older version of GameMaker, but I've never done it for GameMaker Studio, and I'm going to add a couple of things that I hadn't done in my other video. And this is not original. I'm actually following an old, I believe it was a Mark Overmars tutorial, who actually, I believe, started GameMaker. And so nothing's new here, but in case you're wondering, I have on my GitHub repo, Hundredvisions guy, amazing _ game, and you can get your assets in the game project here. It's for GameMaker Studio 2. We're using this for the free version of GameMaker Studio, so we're going to limit the number of sprites and objects and stuff. And so let's go ahead and open this up. And I want to talk about some game setup that you want to make sure you have done correctly. You're going to want to open up room 0, which is the one that I've already created. And you're going to want to click on background, and you're going to want to take a look at the background settings, the background layer properties, I should say. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see animation speed. Well, that's a little slow. We're going to ramp this up to 30 frames per second. So if your performs a little different, it may be the animation speed that's affecting it. Before we go much further, though, I just want to kind of point out when you're in the background room properties. Oops, wrong thing. And no, that is the right one. I just got to move this down a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Make sure background is for background graphics and UI elements. Instances are for the game objects in your game. And so let's go ahead and let me just show you some of the assets you have available. We're going to do that just by loading up the sprites. So we're going to set up some animated sprites for our hero and program our hero to move around. And so we're going to take a look at some of the events and actions that go with it. And you're going to want to begin by right-clicking under Resources, under Sprites, and choose Create Sprite from Images. And somewhere when you download this and you clone it, or you fork my project, and you get it, you're going to have the assets here. These are all free open source assets you can use. And we're going to do the Explore down. We're going to begin with that. And notice there's a strip of 8 images. And when you just open that up in GameMaker Studio, you'll notice it just kind of lines them up just right. There we go. I want to get that over there. And I'm going to move this over here, and let's get him a little smaller. I want you to sort of see kind of this animation and how this all plays out. All right. And so when you hit play, it'll just animate him, and you can see him kind of walking, right? And so we're going to use this for him walking, but we're also going to use the first frame for when he's just not doing anything. He's just standing there looking at us, okay? Kind of like he's going to wait for instructions. That's how I kind of view it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that, and for now we're just going to set it here, but we are going to change the name, and we just hide this for a moment. So, whoa, I'm going to just change the name over here. This is kind of wonky. There we go, let's move it over. From Sprite 0, don't let GameMaker Studio name your sprites, okay? And this is going to be player _ down. Now, I always make sure all of mine are lowercase when I do GameMaker. That's just how I do it, okay? We call that snake case. And whatever you choose for naming stuff, just be consistent. If you start with the word sprite, do it all the time. If you have underscores in between words, do it all the time. It'll make it a lot easier, believe me. Or don't. That's really your choice. Okay, so I just want to point out the collision mask. We're just going to start with the automatic rectangle for collision mask. And the collision mask is where it detects a hit. So if you've collided with an object, it's going to see, is this part of the collision mask touching another collision mask? That will determine whether there's a collision or not, okay? So the collision mask, you can alter it and do different things. I'm just going to keep it just a standard rectangle because this Explorer is pretty much rectangular in shape. And that's all I have to say about that. All right, let's bring this back out. We have the first sprite. Let's create our first object. This is going to be our player. So I'm going to name it object _ player and nothing else, okay? Not down, up, right, because one object will just change sprites as we go. We will go ahead and set the sprite to sprite player down, Okay, but I do have to warn you, when you set a sprite like this and it's an animated sprite, well, let me just show you. We're going to go to the room, and I'm just going to take the player, I'm going to drag him out. Okay, and we're just going to go ahead and test out the game as is. By the way, testing it saves your changes. And you'll notice he's animated, walking forward towards us, but he's not going anywhere. That looks weird. And so, just so you know, when you set the sprite here, you're going to want to probably stop the animation. However, I could do it where we stop it on create, but I'm thinking what's going to happen is when I move to the left or the right or up or down, it's going to be animated in that and move in that direction. But as soon as I let go of a key, we want him just to stop and sort of face us. So I'm going to add a special event, which is key down, no key. So when no key is being pressed, this is what you want it to do. Now I should, whenever I get here, it took me a while to get used to, is it key down or key pressed? And one way I think about it is key pressed means you just pressed it once, right? So this is a one-time event until you let go of the key and press it again, then it gets triggered again. Key down means as long as you're holding the key down, continue to do whatever we tell you to. So it's key down, no key. Now, when there's no key, we want to add our sprite player. So let's go ahead and hide some of this stuff, get that out of the way. Okay. And then I'm just going to shrink this a little bit. And now I'm going to hold down the space bar, click this, and drag it. And that lets me drag things left and right. We're just going to want to get everything sort of centered here. So you can see it's the object player. Key down, no key. So we're going to do a bunch of stuff. All right. And so the first thing we're going to do is whenever the key is being held, we're going to set the sprite. And drag this out. And the sprite's going to be sprite player down. We're going to set the frame to 0. So basically, when there's no key, it's going to start at frame 0. But we're going to need to also, you notice how I just typed SP in here? So you'll see all these sprite-related things. We have this, which is animation speed. So we're going to set animation speed to 0. I'm going to change that to 0. So that stops the animation. And then, let's see, so we got that, and we set the sprite. Oh, we're not going to want to move it either, so I'm going to type move. Oops, sorry. Speed is 0. Click over here, type in move. I'm going to use this one, which is set direction fixed. And no direction is selected. So it's basically like saying, all right, don't point in any particular direction. And this will become important when we start moving, because when we do key press, and we move in a direction, let's say we're going to left, we're always going to be facing left. And the other thing is we're going to grab speed, and we're going to set speed to 0. Let's just scroll up. So speed, we're going to go in the direction of the speed at a speed of 0, which means don't move at all. Now, if we don't change that, but we set it one of the other directions, it's going to keep going in whatever direction we choose at that speed. This is a little bit overkill, but this is going to make it easier for all of our other sprites, because then all of our other sprites will be set with an animation speed and a direction and a speed. So this will give us all that we need for movement, and I'll explain when you see me do the next movement, which brings me to, let's go ahead and do the key up. Actually, no, better yet, let me show you what happens. We already have an animated sprite of him moving down. Let's do a key down of down. So I could add an event here, but then I'd have to drag all this stuff out. And by the way, let me just click on here so you can see all 4 of those. These are called actions, by the way. Okay, so I have 4 of those. I'm going to right click on here, and I'm going to duplicate my event. What that does is it lets me choose a different event, but it will keep all the same actions. This saves you a lot of time. So now I'm going to do a key down of down. This is the down arrow. Now, in this case, we are going to animate it. I'm going to set it to 1. All right. And then on direction fix, I'm going to click the down arrow. And then I'm going to set the speed to 4. Okay. So when there's no key, just double click, no key, no direction, speed of 0, animation speed of 0. Key down, animation speed of 1, direction down, speed of 4. Let's test this out. See how it works. Hold it down. Notice he's moving. But what do you notice? It's not animated. Okay? We're stuck at frame 0 when we go down. We don't want to do that. So you're probably going, all right, well, I guess we're just stuck and we just can't make a video game anymore. No, that's not true. There's actually a variable. It's called image underscore index. Now, I have a lot of students in high school. Some are freshmen. Some are very smart freshmen, and they don't have to worry about this. But a lot of students don't know how to code and type on the keyboard without looking at the keyboard, and they miss out on all this code hint you see here. All right? So let the code hints guide you. There's this thing, a built-in variable called image index. Click it, and you'll be sure to spell it right and use the right case sensitivity. Let's play it now. I'm going to hold down the arrow, and you're going to see that he's animated moving. And here's why. Because while you're holding the key down, image index is designed to just reflect each frame one at a time, and it sort of cycles to the next frame. Now, otherwise, if we have 0, it means keep going to frame 0. In this case, keep going to wherever the current image needs to be. This image index is based on your speed. So if you set it to 1, it should just go to the next image each time. If you want to slow that animation down, you can give it a speed of 0.5. And then it'll be half the speed. Or you can mess around with that a little bit. But we're just going to leave it at that. Okay, so we got down. Let's go ahead and add up while we're at it. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to add a new sprite. So I'm going to right-click, create sprite from images. And now I want you to look for Explorer Up. And this is if you'll get these assets if you went to my repo. Explorer Up. Click Open. I'm going to change the name. Sprite Player Up. Notice Up, he's got his back to us. Okay. Collision mask is set. Everything else is here is set. Notice right here it says Sprite Player Up, but here it still says Sprite Player 1. If I just click anywhere else, it goes ahead and shows me that. Sprite Player Up. Okay, so now we have the animation for up. It's the same number of frames. Collision mask is the same. Let's go to our object player. And now we're going to duplicate down. And all we have to do is change the sprite. So that's cool. So you duplicate event, and it's key down, up. And now all we have to do to set the sprite. Oh, here's another thing some of my students do, and it's just wacky. They'll go in here and they'll hand type this out. When they don't realize there's this little dude right here, the clipboard. Click it. Sprite Player Up is the second one. Direction, we got to change the direction to go up. Speed is still the same. The direction's been set, but the speed is still 4 because we duplicated it. So let's test up and down and see if it works. Go up. See, his back is to us. Turned around, he's facing us. Down, walking down. Cool. Great. Good. Let's do left and right. But we're going to do it with a twist. That's right. I'm going to choose only one sprite, and we're going to use the same sprite for left and right. How will we do it? In right-click, create sprite from images, and we're going to choose the Explorer left. You could just as easily do this with right, but I recommend whichever one you do is probably the one I'm doing, mainly because it's going to be easier. You're going to click Open, and there it is. Right, so we're going to change the name of the sprite, sprite underscore player left, okay, because he's facing left. He'll be moving left. All right, and then we click here, and we're going to go to the object player, and we're going to duplicate. Instead of down, we're going to duplicate. I'm going to do key down. And now, let me just tell you one other thing. Some of you love WASD better. And if you want WASD instead, you go down to letters, and there's W, there's A, there's D out of order, and S, WASD. So you could do it that way. But now we're going to do key down left. All right, so we need to change the direction. We need to click on here, and we're going to do the sprite player left. Let's go ahead and test it out. Hold down left arrow. Animates to the left, up, down. Looks pretty good, right? There's no right yet, so let's do right. But I told you we're going to do this with a twist. Okay, we have the sprite player left, and let's just take a look at it. And honestly, if all we do is just flip this thing horizontally, so basically it just kind of flips around the center. So everything's basically, you can flip it horizontally so it's facing the right. And we would do that for up and down, but it would just look strange because it would be like he'd go on his head, and that just doesn't make sense. So here's what we do. Object player, we're going to duplicate left, and then I'm going to have to add a little piece here. So we're going to go to key down, and we're going to do right. All right, duplicate. I got to click to the right. We have the sprite player left, but instead of just moving to the right, we're also going to flip it using a cool little feature. Let me just go ahead and double click on here. And this is scale. And it's the Pac-Man with the double arrow underneath it. It's set instance scale. I'm going to drag it and drop it right towards the top. It doesn't matter where I drop it. And here's the deal. A 1 represents 100%. So this is 100% normal size. He's 32 pixels wide by 32 high. So we're saying a horizontal scale of 100% means it's going to be 32 pixels wide. Vertical, 32 pixels tall. Now, if we gave it 0.5, it would be half the size. If we gave it 1.5, it would be 1.5 times, in this case, the width, I should say. Now, if we give it a -1, that's negative 100%. That just flips it. So let's go ahead and see how that works. If we did change it to right. Everything else is the same. It's the same sprite, but we've just done this instant scale. Let's go ahead and run it. This is your first foray into a little hack trip. Uh-oh. You see what happened? I go to left. Uh-oh, look what's happening. He's doing the moonwalk. Go to the right, everything looks good. Turn to left, not right. No matter what, he always goes backwards. Why is that? Well, here's the deal. When you do an instant scale, you're going to have to set it back to where it was before, or else it never happens. So we're going to have to actually copy this here, and we're going to go into left, and we're just going to right-click and paste it, image scale. I'm just going to drag it up where it was next to the other, and we're going to change it from -1 to +1. So when we go back to the left, it flips it back. And so now he doesn't moonwalk, which, you know, hey, it could be our little Michael Jackson explorer. Goes to the left, goes to the right. But you see what's happening? It's doing that little jump. All right, why is that? Let's take a look at our sprite player left. The jump is happening because of this thing called the origin. And let's just drag this dude up here. All right. Talking about an origin of 0, 0 is actually the upper left-hand corner. That's the way GameMaker rolls. And so when you do a thing like an image X scale and you reverse it, you're actually also switching this origin to the opposite side of the graphic, which means he just like does this 32 pixel jump because you suddenly flipped it around and actually it kind of flips around the other way. And so the origin, what we want to do is we want to put the origin in the dead center. So we're going to go to top center is where we're going to put it. However, if we do that in one, we have to do it in all the others. So I'm just going to click this. I'm going to sprite player down, double click, set the origin, top center, lock it. Sprite player, oh, that was down. Go up, top center, lock it. Now let's test it out. We put the origin in the center. So when it flips left to right, it's going to be based on that center. Notice? Looks good. Looks smooth. Up, down, left, right. Animation. Everything works. We've got our hero ready to go. I think I'll leave you with this. And I just want to focus on the left and the right. Just remember, instant scale. You're going to need to set that. And we don't really have to set it for we don't have to set it for up and down. And the reason why is he's symmetrical. Left and right is the same. So even if we have them switched, it's no big deal. But if you feel like that's important, or if you have a different kind of sprite that looks a little different, you can add that set instant scale to a 1-1 on everything except for right. Now, I'm being a cheapskate because I want to have more sprites. I only have 20 sprites available. So I just showed you how you could take one sprite and just do a little fancy code to actually flip it around, and you've basically saved yourself an extra sprite. That's an extra object you can have. So there's a lot you can do with that. I hope you found this useful. And in my next tutorial, we're going to add some objects, walls, and stuff, and start creating sort of a maze. And we'll just keep going forward with it. And stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.